Welcome to Bonds After Baby. Happy New Year to everyone. I'm LMFT Evie Empress, and I'm here to help you and your family relationships experience more relief and connection during the stage of pregnancy, postpartum, and early parenthood. Remember to subscribe for my podcast here so you can receive practical support on a weekly basis. So yes, this is a New Year's episode, a little bit late, but still, I think within the first week, and we're one day past the week, about parenting and co-parenting with more ease. Okay, but I do want this to be kind of an anti-New Year's pressure message. You know how it is. Exercise more, drink less, be more patient, be everything to everyone. Also do self-care better. Be better, blah, blah, blah. And as parents, a new year often brings pressures to show up at home in this magical new way, right? I don't think it's helpful to see everything through the lens of what we lack, especially as parents-to-be or parents in the heavy-duty stage of parenting young children or babies, toddlers. I remember as a new parent, the first time around, the litany of messages on social media or fellow moms of this very specific way, that's the best way to parent, whether that's around food or discipline. It's overwhelming and it's tiring. And yes, there are things to learn that are useful. I teach things that are going to be useful to families here, and there can always be perspectives that are worth listening to. But if the core belief, if the major identifying belief is that we need to hit a very rigid and specific checklist to be good, quote unquote, to be showing up as we should, quote unquote, that's tiring, and it doesn't inspire groundedness with the self. It doesn't inspire peace. It also doesn't help us relate to others well when there's that pressure system going. So either partners or kids are going to be affected if we're running on empty inside, or we feel like we just need to hit some kind of arbitrary checklist in our bodies and our minds. So what would it feel like to have a deep belief that we already possess what you already possess, what you need for yourself, for your loved ones, and that it's more about grounding and connecting with the strengths and love that already exists, certainly inside yourself, that's going to bring more of an authentic you, which is better for you and your family, right? So today I used inspiration from a solution-focused therapy approach that emphasizes finding hope through what we already have within us, through recognizing what we already have within us, where you as a mom or parent can connect with your natural inner strengths that already exist. And these concepts are simple, practical, and deeply respectful of your capacity. Now, when I first learned about the solution-focused approach in graduate school, I remember thinking, I kind of rolled my eyes. I thought it was an oversimplification and making everything kind of surface level, but I don't see it that way anymore. I certainly don't see this as a replacement for, yes, looking deeper, seeking help that we may need for things to change or to be better when we need that, or to recognize things that are problematic. I don't think it's an either or. But it is important that even if we seek help or know that something needs to change, that we have what we need within to make that happen, that we have that capacity within. So this is truly the perspective I share for a new year, a new day, or a new moment within a day that's going to bring you more peace as you parent your little one or co-parent your little one. That's a great episode to listen to. This is a great episode to listen to with your spouse, partner, or co-parent. So the three things I'm going to cover are building on your existing strengths, noticing exceptions to difficulties, and using the miracle question to inspire growth. And I'll get to that later. So let's dive in. So firstly, and this is in terms of co-parenting and just within yourself as a parent, shifting from what's the problem or seeing everything as a problem to what's already helping. One of the biggest co-parenting challenges is feeling like you and your partner are doing things very differently and worrying that one of the methods is wrong or harmful. Now, I am not going to be dismissive of someone who has legitimate concerns about parenting choices that may be emotionally abusive, consistently deregulated. Those are matters to deal with. But in day-to-day co-parenting disagreements, the shift to a different kind of question can bring more compassion and collaboration. Okay. And I do want to add that I will have future sessions, future episodes on issues that are more abusive, that when you are recognizing something that is highly problematic in a partner's parenting behavior or your own or in your couple behavior, how to start tackling that. But for now, I'm talking about really kind of more everyday concerns. So if you approach with a question like, hey, what am I doing that's already helping my child? What is my partner doing that's already helping our child? Instead of focusing solely on disagreements, you can look for useful differences, because the reality is I haven't met a co-parenting couple that doesn't bring something useful in different ways to the child. So, first of all, can you imagine what it would be like for your partner to say, hey, I'm noticing what you're doing that's really effective or really sweet with your child. Or, hey, I actually want to think about this more. I know that I disagree with this approach, but I actually want to consider what's useful or what's nice for our children or child based on what you're doing, right? Rather than starting with a judgment. Imagine how good that would feel to hear, instead of, God, I can't believe you're doing that again, or you're spoiling him, or this or that. Imagine if you can do that for yourself too, when something feels hard or when you might be getting critical, to notice in yourself and to offer yourself that kind of self-love of, yeah, this is hard or this isn't working. But in general, I know I have these qualities that I bring that are really wonderful for my kid, right? It's soothing to recognize that. Now, what do we do when we're feeling seen and recognized? Well, we're soothed, we're usually more regulated, and we're going to be more open to feedback and collaboration, right? We don't need to be on the defense. So here's an example challenge. This is a big one. How we put the baby to sleep, right, in that stage. So let's say one parent rocks the baby, puts them down, and the other prefers laying the baby down awake instead of rocking them fully to sleep before putting them down. So it would be very easy for one and the other to say, like, oh, you shouldn't be rocking them. We're going to have to rock them for years and years to get them to sleep. And for one parent to say, God, you're leaving them down awake, but they seem fussy. They're not getting the comfort they need, really, and to see it as a deficiency perspective either way. So a reframe could be, hey, both approaches show care, both work at different times. And one might say, like, hey, I noticed they settle faster with you after this really long day. And then your partner could say, hey, I've seen how your routine helps them actually stay asleep longer. Why is this helpful? When parents feel valued, if your partner feels valued instead of judged, it's going to be easier to collaborate. And also, you're going to be able to expand your mind more of, there isn't only one rigid way for something to happen, and there isn't only value in one really specific way. So it brings more flexibility, which is also healthier in family dynamics. Okay. So let's say at home some tension arises, or you're noticing something that annoys you is just so different from your approach. You might want to think, hey, what strength is my partner, spouse, co-parent bringing to this moment and my child? Now, again, I don't mean this to apply to everything. There are certainly things that you could observe that are just wrong, but there are likely many, many situations where this kind of reframe can help you tune into your partner's goodness, strengths, values, and for you to get to a point of more flexibility where there's just a different approach that can be okay. And to do this with yourself too, right? If you're struggling or something's not working, you can also recognize, hey, I bring so much to my child. This is just a hard moment. Okay. Second, using exceptions to reduce conflict and build more agreement, more collaboration. So look, challenge and conflict, I've been saying this if you've been listening to me this whole time, challenge and conflict is normal. It's not a realistic expectation that we're going to avoid that. And especially around routines, discipline, how we respond to big feelings, there are often disagreements about this. So if we look for an exception, a moment where that kind of conflict didn't happen or felt easier, that can be very productive. So let's say you're in a kerfuffle with your spouse, a big disagreement, there's tension. When you're trying to handle something together and it's not going well, it's tense. You could ask, hey, when did we handle this better? Was there a time where this was easier? When were we more on the same page facing this, or even facing something else, and how did that work better for us, right? So let's say this is a common one, toddler tantrums, frequent disagreements on how to handle them. You can look at exceptions instead of blaming each other. Look for exceptions. Hey, last weekend we stayed calmer. What helped us stay calmer last weekend? Or, oh, that went better when we didn't jump in at the same time. How about we see, like, when one's going in, the other stays in a back seat for support? That's just an example. But why this works is because it's going to show you that cooperation is already possible, that it's happened before, and gives clues on how to repeat it. Even the discussion itself, the approach itself to say, hey, what worked better last time, is noticing this is an active collaboration, right? That we're on the same side. Instead of having swords and shields out with each other, we can notice that we do have the capacity for something more effective or easier together, and that's great. In rare instances, kind of rare instances where you can't think of something, yeah, that's a sign for more teamwork then. That's a sign of like, then we need to get on the same page. But the act of looking at it that way is already kind of getting you on the same side, which is good. And again, you can do this for yourself, right? So feeling down about an approach that ends in shambles with your kid, we have all been there, right? I was there this morning, okay? You can just say, hey, to yourself, like, there's exceptions to these moments. It's not always this way. What has worked better for you before, right? So recognizing the strengths in those moments is also important. After a smoother moment, when something goes well, you can say, hey, that worked better. What helped us there? You don't need to solve everything at once. You're learning what works. Parenting and co-parenting is a long game. It's not, the stakes do not end, right? Like in one day. If we have a bad day or a bad moment, it doesn't define all of our parenting. It doesn't define our kids' experience and our experiences with them. So finally, using the miracle question to reframe ongoing co-parenting struggles or ongoing struggles that you notice within yourself as you parent. So what's the miracle question? The miracle question is this: imagine a miracle overnight solved your problem or your problems as co-parents. And then describe in detail when you wake up from this overnight miracle that happened. Can you observe specific changes that you notice when waking up? Really specific changes in detail, observable changes. Again, when I heard this in grad school, I rolled my eyes at this. I just thought this oversimplifies everything. But it doesn't. It's actually a question that helps people think not just of what's wrong, but to say, God, what would it look like and feel like if things were the way I wish them to be, in a more peaceful way, in a more collaborative way? And it not only that, it helps people tune in and explore what would be that way of being in a creative way, like all the details, gestures, sense of security, and all the kind of the micro ways that we would experience that in a day, right? We don't need a soliloquy, right? We don't always need like our partner to read us a sonnet or something to know that we're in love. Sometimes it's just a squeeze of the arm and a warm look in the eyes, right? It's all these small gestures that add up in a day to deeper connection. So it's painting that picture inside, right? So imagine, let's say as co-parents you feel really stuck, like the same argument on repeat over and over. This is where a miracle question can be really helpful and powerful. So if you say to each other, hey, imagine tonight we're sleeping, miracle happens, and this co-parenting challenge, whatever that is, feels really light. It's just lighter. When we wake up, what are the first small signs that tell us things are better? And each person should answer this question, right? Like, oh, I notice when I share something, we don't get as defensive. There's more ease with each other, like physically. We might be more inclined towards being affectionate. We trust each other more. Our child seems more relaxed. Our body language is more relaxed, et cetera, et cetera. And then you can ask, like, what would we be doing differently? What would our child notice about that, right? Because part of the reason you guys want co-parenting to go well is not only for your own ease going through the day and day to day with these challenges, but also so your child feels that and sees an example of parents who know how to navigate difficulty, which is super important even at really young ages. And again, this miracle question, this kind of discussion moves you out of past arguments and into shared hope. It doesn't force agreement, doesn't force you to see things a certain way, but it requires more flexibility, creativity, and imagination to see that other possibilities exist. Okay. And if you start by choosing one small realistic step from the miracle, just one, it doesn't have to be the whole shebang, a clearer plan, a gentler tone, a pause before responding, because progress grows from smaller changes. Now, you can also do this with yourself too. If I woke up and this specific thing was easier when I'm, on my own with my child, what would that look like for me? What is a small way I can get there? Okay. Just trusting that in yourself, your intentions, your warmth, and your strength within, what already exists within, will give you so much moving forward to go towards, the kind of dynamic you want more in your family. You don't lack what you need. You and your co-parent spouse just need to tune into what you already possess, right? Co-parenting challenges parenting. They don't mean you're failing. It means you're navigating something important and something that's challenging, which is totally natural. And so by focusing on your strengths, noticing when things go better, and imagining hopeful change, not in a fantasy or deranged way, but in a realistic way. Yes, of course we can have hope. Of course we can move towards something that can be better than slightly better. You create more allowance for respectfulness, collaboration, teamwork, and trust. Your child, you and your partner, you don't need to be perfect parents or spouses. What families need are people who keep choosing connection and a commitment to connection, even in hard moments. So if you notice, though, that even small discussions like this become easily contentious or hostile or silent, you may need help from a couples counselor. Also, stay tuned to my co-parenting resources coming out later this year, and stay subscribed to be informed of them. I use all my integrated knowledge to deliver an extremely targeted, practical, and compassionate approach that can help heal relationship strain and bring more peace to your family dynamic. Please comment if you have any questions you'd like me to address in future episodes, or any comments about what you've heard today. And again, subscribe to my podcast so you get notified when there's a new episode. I'm here for you and your family. See you next week. Bye.